And that's part of a discussion I hope to have for the next few minutes with my guest this morning. Eylon Levy is with me, a spokesperson for the Israeli government. He is in Tel Aviv. Welcome to our program. I'm happy to meet you here.
Thank you for having me.
So the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, today, the U.S. President yesterday, the German Chancellor as well, all of the leaders there in Israel to show solidarity. I'm wondering, when the leaders' visits stop, will the ground incursion begin?
First of all, I'm glad that you're shining a spotlight on the extraordinary solidarity visits that we've been having here in Israel over the last few days from world leaders who were shocked by the atrocious ISIS-style atrocities that we saw on the morning of 7th of October. You know, for the President of the United States to visit an active war zone where the United States is not fighting. I think the only other example is Ukraine. And we feel it this time, that the world understands that this time is different. It's not just another round of fighting against Hamas. This is a war that Hamas has forced Israel into with the war crimes of the atrocities of the 7th of October. It's a war we're going to win. It's a war that, as Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said just a few hours ago, it's a war the United Kingdom wants Israel to win, that the United States will make sure that Israel has all the supplies that are needed in order to make sure that it can win. And as our Prime Minister has said, this is going to be long. It is going to be hard, but we have no choice. And we appreciate all the international support that we have, including from Canada as well, in condemning the atrocious horrors that we saw from Hamas.
If it is going to be long and it is going to be hard and it is going to be different, you know, the stated aims of completely eliminating Hamas, how close are you at this point to reaching that stated goal?
I'm not going to speculate on operational matters and the movement of troops, and I don't think you would expect me to, but it's coming soon. Israel has called up the biggest ever mobilization of reserves because we as a country, while emotionally in pain from the images of the atrocities that are continuing to come through, and they really are gruesome, Israel is a country that is united around this goal of destroying Hamas once and for all and eliminating this Nazi-style evil. It's not going to be easy, as you said. We're going to see difficult images. It's going to be extremely painful for Israeli society, but we have no choice. We simply can no longer tolerate this ISIS-style terrorism right on our borders after they perpetrated what I'll remind your viewers was, in absolute terms, the worst terror attack in world history after 9/11. And as we have 200 Israeli hostages, from babies to elderly people, still trapped inside Gaza in captivity, being denied basic humanitarian conditions or mercy.
I want to make sure we spend time to talk about those, but just again on the point of what we're seeing militarily right now, the airstrikes continue, and what we've heard from the IDF just today is, in fact, they continue throughout the Gaza Strip. You just referenced difficult images to come from the Israeli perspective. We're seeing difficult images as well of Palestinian civilians. And I'm just wondering, something that Israel told Gazans in the north to evacuate and to move to the south. You were on CNN yesterday. I noted the interview with Jake Tapper, and you said they should move to an area where it will be safer, away from intense fighting. But those airstrikes are now on the south, on those southern regions. So where then is a safer area?
So it's important to remember the war that we are fighting, the war that Hamas has forced us into, is a war against Hamas, the terror organization, not against Gaza, not against the Palestinians. And the reason that the fighting is going to be particularly intense in the north of Gaza, and the reason we've asked civilians to evacuate temporarily for their own safety, is because that is where Hamas has embedded the bulk of its terrorist infrastructure, its arms depots, its rocket launchers, underneath people's homes, under schools, under hospitals. And so we're asking civilians to get out of the way so that we can target what is, by all accounts, legitimate military targets
but in telling
of
them,
the Hamas terror infrastructure.
I appreciate that. I just wonder, in terms of telling them to move to the south, out of harm's way, which is now being directly hit by those airstrikes. It seems contradictory, perhaps.
Israel is going to go after Hamas terrorists wherever they are and do everything it can to minimize civilian casualties. That doesn't mean that the area in the south of the Gaza Strip is immune and that Hamas can act there with impunity. I don't think anyone would expect that Israel is going to allow Hamas to launch attacks from that territory with impunity. But Israel is working together with international partners in order to create those humanitarian frameworks in the south, where the people who heed Israel's warning to leave the north of the Gaza Strip, where the fighting will be especially intense, will be able to reach relative safety and will be able to have their humanitarian needs met. But Israel has been clear: we are going after Hamas. We are going after the entirety of its military and governing structure. We are going to destroy it wherever it is in the Gaza Strip. And then we're warning Palestinians to get out of the way. We're working together with international partners so that we can minimize any civilian casualties on the other side. And it's important to remember that it is the Hamas terror organization which launched this war with the war crimes we saw on the morning of 7th of October that unequivocally bears all responsibility for any civilian casualties within the Gaza Strip.
I'm wondering, one of the significant developments to come out of the U.S. president's visit yesterday was the announcement that there will be humanitarian aid coming into Gaza through that Rafah border crossing and coming in from Egypt. Will the airstrikes stop, at least temporarily, to ensure that that aid can be delivered safely?
Israel has indicated it has no objection to humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip from Egypt. On the contrary, we want Palestinian civilians there to get humanitarian aid through the border crossing with Egypt, which for a variety of moral, legal, operational reasons, that is the correct avenue. And we've been clear we have one condition, that the aid not reach Hamas. International aid donated by foreign governments, by international agencies, must reach the people it is intended to and not reach the terrorists who, just a few days ago, the United Nations admitted had stolen fuel and medicine from UNRWA stocks. We will not allow Hamas to abuse the international community's goodwill in order to rearm, and we will thwart any attempts to use the Rafah border crossing in order to smuggle war material for Hamas's terror machine against us.
That's the clear point. This is aid to be coming in from Egypt through that Rafah crossing. No aid into Gaza through any of the Israeli border points until you are able to secure the release of the hostages, that Hamas would release all of the hostages. We learned this morning from other Israeli officials that the number of hostages is now 203. Can you tell us this morning the latest efforts to secure their release, where that stands and what the plan is?
Israel will do whatever is necessary to restore